Great. Thank you. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, loud and clear.
Excellent. So I want to talk to you about a citizen science project that I was involved in here at the University of Manchester. And the motivation for this work is that three-quarters of people um, who who suffer from chronic pain believe um, yep, there we go. Three-quarters of people who suffer from chronic pain believe that their pain fluctuates with the weather. And this percentage is rather constant among many different studies. The problem here is that scientific support for these claims is lacking. When you dig into the scientific literature, the journal articles, you'll find that it's hard to get consensus about what the links are, and even what the particular weather variable that's causing people's pain is. So, for instance, in a study that we did, we looked at 67 recent papers on this and found that just with the one variable, atmospheric pressure at the surface, that 20 studies reported that there were no link between pressure and pain. 11 studies reported that high or increasing pressure were associated with higher levels of pain in the patients, and 7 reported low or decreasing pressure were associated with higher levels of pain. Now that's pretty shocking, and that there is no consensus. And so many people, when they go to the doctors and say, I think that the weather is influencing my pain. I can predict when it's going to rain from the pain in my joints. The doctors may tend not to believe them because the scientific literature just doesn't support that. Now, the question obviously is, why is there so little consensus in this study, in these results? And let me just illustrate that with this example graph here. On the x-axis is the number of days or number of weather reports that go into the study. And then on the y-axis is the number of samples, or the number of people that were involved in this study. And this graph here shows all these different points of these different previous studies, and the shape and the color of these represent different types of studies. I don't need to get into that. But what you can see is that people, or these various studies in the past, either have a very small number of days and a large number of people involved, or they have a relatively small number of people involved and they last for a very long time. We don't have any studies that last for a long time, so of course encompass a large variety of weather over a number of different seasons, and also incorporate a large number of different people as well. A further problem with getting a handle on this is we don't understand the physical link between weather and pain. Now, we think that if we understand this better through the type of research that I'm going to show you, that this may lead to future interventions and therapies, depending, on once we figure out what the factors are that affect people's pain. And we could even give pain forecasts for people to manage their pain. And so enter Will Dixon, and Will is a professor of digital epidemiology here at the University of Manchester, and he wears a number of different hats. In addition to being a professor, he's also a clinical rheumatologist, and so he sees patients still one day a week in his practice. And he came up with the idea that, look, if we can collect people's pain on a daily or semi daily basis, then we'll be able to track people's pain. And this is much better than just having people come to the doctor and say, well, how was it since your last visit 6 months ago? And they give some kind of general answer. Having more detailed daily or semi-daily regular data about people's symptoms, how they're feeling, much better. And if we do that in an app, then of course we can collect that data very easily. People carry their phones around. If we have that data on the phone, then we can use the GPS in the phone to link to the nearest weather station and hence merge these two. And what we hope is that we could collect the longest and the largest data collection effort ever to examine this association between weather and pain. And so, to cut a long story short, we managed to pull this off. The project was called Cloudy with a Chance of Pain. Will's very clever title to this. We had a web page, we had an app, we got people to sign up, and for 15 months, we collected data of people living in the UK who suffered from chronic pain of one type or another over this period. Now, we had over 13,000 people download the app, and 10,000 people contribute data in some other ways. Now, as you know, if you have your own phone and love downloading apps, many people don't follow through on their app. When you look at other apps, 24% of users open the app after first opening it. So it's a very quick drop off of retention. And after 90 days, only 4% of users are typically retained when you look at other apps. Now, when you compare this to what we were doing in Cloudy with a Chance of Pain, we had 80% of users that entered data at least once. Within a week after installing the app, half of users were still retaining it. And after 200 days, 11% of the people who downloaded the app were still entering data nearly every day. It's an incredible difference between our study and the other apps and other types of studies like this out there. Why? Because people were engaged. They wanted to contribute their personal data to help us understand the results. Now, we've published a number of papers. I want to talk to you about the one that I was involved in. It was published in the Bulletin of the AMS in 2020. And what we did was we took a very meteorological approach to this, as you might imagine, since I'm a meteorologist myself. We did a process called synoptic compositing. And what we did was we took the top 10% of days where most pain events, with the most pain events among people that were responding, entering their personal pain level on that day. And we took the bottom 10% of days that had the least pain events that being reported among the respondents. And this amounted to about 20% of people on any given day for the high events, and about 10% of people that were responding on the least painful event days. We defined a pain event as a one or more category increase in pain from the preceding day. People were entering their pain on a scale of 1 to 5. And as I mentioned, we had about 10,000 people whose data were able to go into this study. And so what you're seeing here are the first ever weather maps that have ever been produced for painful days and least painful days in the UK. And so on the left, we have the days that are very painful. And what you can see in the solid lines are the pressure field. And so the pressure field is in the Eastern North Atlantic and over the UK here, and there's Spain and Western Europe. Low pressure. There's a low pressure system here, and the coloring represents the anomaly from the climatology. So this is about 5 millibars lower than average on this particular day, on these particular 45 days where people were experiencing high numbers of pain, where a high number of people were experiencing pain events. The flip side, 5 millibar high pressure anomaly over the area, again associated with high pressure coming up from an anticyclone coming up from the south. And so this was the primary result. There were other parts of the study too, but all the associated weather that you expect with a low, lots of rain, high humidity was present as well. And for the low pain days where there was a high pressure anomaly, again, you expected the similar kind of weather, relatively dry, lower humidity days. So to summarize, you need a large number of data points in order to tease out these very subtle relationships to answer this age-old question. You know, it's been around since Hippocrates, over 2,000 years ago, and we needed a large number of data points because naturally, the weather is not the primary influence that most people attribute to on their pain. It's something else, how much they were active or, other kinds of effects on their body. The trick to solving this question was looking at smartphones and getting engaged citizen scientists to help us. And this was on a scale that has been previously difficult to do. And it would have been nearly impossible to do it without it. We found about the higher pain days are colder, lower dew points, lower pressure, and higher winds, and vice versa for the days that would tend to be associated with low pain. And one of the factors that we found from people who participated and then found out about the results of our study was that it really gave them confidence to walk into their doctors and for those that didn't believe them and say, look, here's a study that actually does show this, and I was a participant in that. And then as a final point, we got a lot of public media attention for this. I was on the Weather Geeks podcast, and the Washington Post wrote an article about this. And even after this, there were still some people who kind of missed the point of the study and go, well, we knew that already, rather than saying, well, it's nice that it was confirmed with a big data set. And I think this is the problem with soundbite science and trying to communicate perhaps new information in these old ways. And so with that, I thank you and hand it back over to the moderator.